Welcome to Living in Silver City, a source of information for buyers and sellers. My name is Cecilia McNichol. I am a real estate broker with Century 21 Hacienda Realty here in Silver City. This presentation, we're going to be talking about 3 items that a buyer should evaluate before they purchase a home that has electricity sourced by the sun or solar energy. There are 2 types of solar systems that we're going to discuss in relationship to these 3 items. The first one is an intertie grid. That is a solar system where the home is connected to the utility grid. It does not use batteries. The sun is captured in solar panels on the roof or on the ground in an array. They call it a solar array. And that energy is converted and sent to the power grid. The individual that occupies the home and uses the power does not really know the difference between whether it's grid power or solar power because they are being fed power from the grid. The way that this is a benefit to people is if you produce more energy from your solar source than you use in your home, then you will receive a credit from the power company. If on the other hand you use more power than you're producing with your solar system, the power company will still supply you with power and they will give you a credit, but it won't be a surplus, and you will pay some type of bill. It might be definitely smaller than what you might pay if you were not hooked into a solar system. Let's go take a look outside at my house, which I'm using as an example because it's an intertie grid system. Okay, here we have an example of a solar panel array on a south-facing slope of a house here in southern New Mexico in Silver City. Also on the far right of this, you will see a small vertical box, and that is the inverter. Not the white dome, that's a skylight, and not the thing on the ridge of the roof, that's a satellite dish. Okay, that's a good example of what solar panels look like on a regular metal roof, and we'll move on to taking a look at what are the other components of a solar system. We are looking at the meters that go with an intertie grid system. This is a system that is hooked to the power grid for the Pacific New Mexico Power here in southwestern New Mexico. The meter on the left is the amount of kilowatt hours the house is using with all the appliances on at a certain time. And the other meter, the second one on the far right, is called the REC meter, and that is recording how many kilowatt hours this system is producing on a given day. This is what you'll see on the outside of a house for an intertie grid system. There are no batteries. Okay, now that we've looked at an intertie grid system, let's talk about the second system, which is a standalone or off-grid system. These solar systems do not use the utility grid that's in place. They capture the energy just like you do on an intertie grid system with solar panels, but they store that energy in batteries instead of sending it to the utility grid. They are not hooked up with the power company by any means, and they do not receive any type of bill. But on the other hand, they have to be very aware of their usage and the style of living that they have, because if they draw down their batteries and use up their energy, there is no other backup source. The power company is not going to be able to provide them with energy. On the other hand, if the power grid goes out, the utility grid goes out for some reason, a storm, let's say, then the people who are on a standalone system are not affected by that at all. Let's go take a look at what an array of batteries might look like for somebody who has a standalone system. This is a location that has a standalone solar system with a solar array over there, plus a room that holds all of the batteries. unlike the other system, which is hooked into the power grid. This is standalone and it's a separate room. It has the inverter for the battery energy that comes in. And this is what that looks like. All right, we're back in the house and we're going to talk about the 3 items that a buyer should consider and evaluate very closely prior to making a purchase on a home that is using solar power for their energy source. There are 3. 1 is your electrical footprint. 2 is the age of the system. And 3, who owns the system. Let's start with the electrical footprint. When a house is designed and the contractor knows that it's going to be a solar system, there is a solar engineer specialist that will come and work with the home builder and the owner to determine what is the type of usage that particular home is going to have so that they can size the solar panels and the capacity correctly. So they take a look at things like all of your appliances, refrigerator, washer, dryer, whether you have an electric or gas range, what type of heating do you have air conditioning, do you have a swimming pool, any of those kind of things, and they calculate your annual kilowatt hours. And then they can size the system correctly so that you can produce more than you expect to use, your estimated footprint. All right, so when you go to buy a house that's already been designed by somebody else, your lifestyle isn't going to be the same as theirs. So let's use me as an example. When I thought about buying this house, I knew it was 12 years old. I knew it had an intertie grid system. I knew it did not have air conditioning, and that it was built as a passive solar home for both heating and cooling. And I was aware of that. And the seller had mostly zeroed out her electric bill most months, and on an annual basis, she always ended up with a credit. The only time that she paid money to the power company was during the winter when the heat was on. Again, she did not have air conditioning. So I move in and the summer is hotter than it has been in the past, and I decided that this house needed air conditioning and that I was going to install a mini split which provides heating and cooling. Now that right there changed the electrical footprint of the house. There was no air conditioning here before. So I disconnected the electric baseboards, put in the mini split with heating and cooling. I also disconnected a whole house soft water system because I didn't feel it was necessary. And that's the only big changes I made. My lifestyle is pretty much similar to the previous owner. I don't have a TV, they didn't have a TV. I'm pretty conscious about leaving on lights or keeping the house heated while I'm gone, things like that. So it looks to me like, I've only been here a year, it looks to me like I'm going to be getting an electric bill in the winter, close to $100, but I didn't get any bills during the summer, even with the air conditioning. So I might be close to zeroing out on an annual basis as well. So it's important when you go to buy a house to think about who the previous owners were, ask them what their their system produces in kilowatt hours, and then go take some time to work either with a solar installer, or you can find programs online that will help you determine what your electrical footprint might be. I mean, you may buy a house that doesn't have a garage. You may have someone in your family that likes to use power tools. You may have people that are on the computer and on the TV all day playing games. Those kind of things will drastically change your electrical footprint compared to the owner if they didn't do the same thing. So it's just a knowledge that you want to acquire so that you're not surprised, because it might have been advertised that the house had a zero electric on an annual basis. But when you move in, you find out that that's not true. Now, that wasn't incorrect, the seller disclosing that they had a zero electric bill, but your electrical footprint is different. So that's something that you might want to know, because in case you want to have a zero electric bill and you have a higher capacity for usage than the previous owner, you may be looking at upgrading your system. And it's not just like it's like Legos where you can go buy 1 or 2 more panels and snap them together up on your roof and now you'll have more solar capacity. Technology is changing all the time. It's rapidly changing. Think about how often your phone is already outdated in just a number of years. Same thing goes with these panels. They have software associated with them and they can go out of production within 3 or 4 or 5 years of even being on the market. So when you need to add panels to your already existing panel array, you'll need to talk with the solar installer and find out if there are panels on the market today that are compatible that they can hook up for you. And as long as you have room on the roof, you might be able to put additional panels up there. That's great if that can happen. If not, then you're looking at 2 other options. The first option would be to set up a whole new solar system that runs in parallel to the one that you already have. So more brand new panels, brand new inverter, brand new everything, and connect it together in tandem so that you have increased your solar production. That's the first option. The second one, which is way more costly, would be to remove the old infrastructure and buy an all-new system. Now, if this is an intertie grid, you're just looking at things like panels and inverter. If this is a standalone system, you have other things to consider besides the panels. The batteries themselves may be an older type battery. The original ones, you had to take the little lids off and pour water in them. Those are, not very many people have those anymore. They went to what's called AGM, which is a different kind of battery, a big step up. Then now the better batteries to buy are lithium ion batteries. They cost 4 times as much as the old AGM batteries, but you don't need as many of them. But still, you could spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on batteries. I know someone who just had to do that because when they bought their house, they didn't have a garage. So they built what's called a supersized garage for a lot of recreational vehicles that they have. And then now their batteries weren't sufficient to produce the electricity that they needed to run their home. They were draining their batteries down too much and then their power would go off. So they had to put in pretty much an upgraded system that cost them nearly $50,000. Okay, so the age of the system is really important, whether it's an intertie grid or a standalone system. They both have components that might age out and you might be faced with replenishing them. Okay, the third item to think about that you want to know is who owns that system. Your broker will help you with this because the seller will have to disclose if they don't own it, if it's a lease option. And this was really common 20, 25 years ago when solar systems were very expensive to put in and the solar companies were offering lease packages and those leases may still be running, and when you go to buy it, it's going to have to be settled whether the seller pays off the lease before closing or at closing, but it may not be transferable to you and you may not want to have a lease option. So those are 3 things that you need to know prior to purchasing a home that has electrical power sourced by the sun. That will be your electrical footprint, yours and theirs, the age of the system, and third, who owns it. Okay, I hope that this information has been really helpful to you, and I'm here if you need to call me. My information, contact information is at the end of the video. I'd be more than happy to talk with you about any of these items that we've discussed here, and I hope that you'll have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for stopping by and watching our video on living in Silver City. Okay, see you later, bye.